College, guys. College is one of the most controversial topics, especially if you're watching this video in the 2020s. I'm sure this is going to age pretty well though, because as we keep going into the future, we can see that college is becoming a lot more controversial, right? A lot of people are thinking that it's worthless to get a degree. A lot of people think it is a waste of time, money, efforts, brain power, you name it, right? So I'm going to talk about my experience with college, the pros, the cons, and the do's and don'ts, right? The things that I learned and the things that I think a lot of other people are going to find helpful if they want to figure out if college is for them. So guys, I'm going to start right off the top here. When I went to college, I was in the military reserves. Now, don't click off because this is going to apply to everybody. The reason I went to the reserves is because I didn't understand at the time that there were so many scholarships out there that you could get for school, all right? I didn't understand how the process really worked, didn't really care. I was trying to get out of high school as fast as possible. I did not care. I was just trying to get out, right? One of the biggest things that you need to have when you go to college, I believe if you're going to a community college, if you're going to a university, right, you need to have a scholarship or scholarships, right? I had a friend who was in the university that I went to. He applied to so many scholarships. He spent quite a bit of time doing this, and I believe he would do this as the months would go on as well. So he didn't just quit, after he got into college. He would apply to so many scholarships. He had so much money. He was able to buy a house with his brother, live in the house, which was maybe 5 or 10 minutes off campus, had money to pay for school, had money to pay for his house, had money to pay for his groceries, his bills, everything, guys. You can apply for scholarships and get a ton of money for it. But he told me that most people do not apply for scholarships because it is tough, right? Sometimes you got to write an essay. Sometimes you got to sit down and actually think of something to, write down. But a lot of these essays, guys, are actually pretty easy. All you got to do is write like maybe one page of something. And a lot of it is personal experience. A lot of these scholarships are very unique. So they're going to ask about your experience with certain things, what your thoughts are on certain things. You're not going to get every single scholarship, but guys, there's so many out there that people don't think about. There's a scholarship for almost everything, okay? Almost every subject, almost anything you can think of, all right? So get money, get funding. If you are one of those people that, let's say your parents didn't make a whole lot of money, and this has changed a little bit throughout the years, but if you are at a certain income level, FAFSA, right? Basically, it's federal student aid for college. I knew a lot of people who came from low income areas, and FAFSA paid for their school. They didn't have to take out loans or very, very small loans because something called the Pell Grant paid for all of their schooling. All right, so very important to get your Pell Grants if possible. I knew people who had so much money left over that they were able to buy groceries, they were able to buy things that they needed, they were able to pay for their car, they were able to use that money for a lot of other things, right? They covered all their school expenses. So get the Pell Grants. Guys, a lot of people, believe it or not, they don't even go for the FAFSA because it's annoying. It's kind of like doing your taxes, but it's a lot easier. You just have to follow the steps. It takes you maybe 30 minutes to an hour tops, but guys, it's gonna save you so much money. And even if you don't qualify for Pell Grants, a lot of times you can qualify for unsubsidized loans, which you don't have to pay interest on, which again, you don't want to take loans, but if worst comes to worst, those loans are the best, right? You don't have to pay on those loans, if I'm remembering that correctly, because that's why I took some of those loans, because I needed it to offset what the military was not paying for, right? First year of college, I remember getting a couple scholarships from the school. Sometimes you'll get random money thrown at you. Sometimes you'll get the Pell Grant at first, but then your tax return says something different a year or two later. Maybe your parents make more money or whatever, and then you don't get the Pell Grants. Things change. But guys, money when it comes to college is important. All right, it's so stupid. You cannot work unless you're working, I don't know, you're making like 100K a year. Even then, you cannot make enough money to really pay your way through college anymore. Gone are the days where you can work a part-time job throughout the summer and then pay for your entire, year, 2 semesters of college, and then do that back to back. Right? There's a reason that a lot of people are tens of thousands of dollars in debt, because it's just simply not doable. But there's a smart way to go about it. All right. Now, the other thing that I would recommend when it comes to college is do not try to do too much. Right? I know that sounds counterintuitive to a lot of you guys who want to take on the world. I get it. I was the same way, but you will burn out. You got to be very careful. You got to balance your studies with your life, right? You need to have a social life, okay? I get it. Some people are going for really complicated degrees, STEM degrees. They're going to require a lot more time. There's going to be times you're going to have to sacrifice your social life and things you like to do. But guys, try your best not to be one of those people who is juggling full-time school with full-time work with, a family and wanting to socialize and go out on the weekend, and also being involved in all these extra groups. I get it. There's people who can do it. They are the exception. They're not the rule. And even they will have burnout, right? There will be something that comes up out of the blue that they are not prepared for, that they cannot balance. So I would recommend, if you are going to college, do not overwhelm yourself with random stuff. I would focus on college. If you are going to school, I would do everything in your power. Again, focus on getting it paid for so you don't have to worry about working, or even if you have to work, it's going to be part-time, right? You want to have time to invest into college. Also, get into some things in college, guys, right? Being social is a huge thing. We're finding that out, especially as social media is sort of, yes, it's big, but a lot of people are opening their eyes and they're realizing that nothing replaces human connection. Dating apps are starting to lose their allure, right? Because people want to meet people, they want to socialize, they want to interact, right? Like we've been doing for hundreds of years, thousands of years. We need to socialize. So get involved with groups, with organizations that you're very passionate about, right? You're going to meet like-minded people. You're going to have an enjoyable college experience. I know a lot of people who go through college and they do not get involved with people, and they just get their degree and they get out and they don't have any connections. They don't have a network. They don't really have anything besides a piece of paper. All right. Now, here's another thing I would highly recommend. All right. When it comes to college, pick the subject, pick the degree that you want, that is interesting to you. It doesn't have to be the most amazing thing in the world to you, but pick something that is interesting to you. I met plenty of people in college who did not know what they were doing, right? You hear the classic story. I went to school, I wanted an accounting degree, but once I got to the math part, I didn't like it. Well, to me, guys, that's kind of counterintuitive, because if you are looking at going into accounting, you know that you're going to be doing a ton of math. And you would think people are going to be going in because they enjoy math, they enjoy numbers, and they want to do the accounting stuff. But you would be surprised. A lot of people, guys, they do what their parents tell them to do. Their parents tell them accounting's a good job, going into the medical field's a good job. A lot of people who want to be a nurse or a doctor who get into these classes, biology, chemistry, anatomy and physiology, that was a huge one that a lot of people would fail out of. What I will tell you is this: if you want it enough, you will get it. If it is interesting enough to you, if it is your passion, you will make it happen, right? I understand things happen. I understand sometimes people try their absolute best and it still doesn't work. But I'm saying, if you find the subject, the thing that you really want to learn about, the thing you really want to go into afterward, right? You gotta think of a degree as a ticket, right? It kind of gets your foot in the door. It's sort of a prerequisite for a lot of jobs, a lot of businesses now. if you guys have been looking around job postings, guys, it's true. You have to have a degree for most jobs, or it's just sort of a requirement, preference. It's becoming the standard now, right? That's why a lot of people are going for their master's degree. Now, here's the thing. When you go for the subject that you like, realize that the first year and really the second year, you're going to be doing a lot of the prerequisite stuff, right? I would recommend, if you want to, if you want to still live at home with your parents, or if you just want to kind of ease into college and you don't have money, you don't have scholarships, you don't have anything to pay for like a university, go to community college, guys. It's so much cheaper. You get all the prerequisites out of the way. You're gonna have to do your English and math classes. I know you can test out of some of these classes during high school, at the end of high school. You can potentially get out of some of them, but you're gonna have to do some prerequisites, okay? Unless you got your associate's degree during high school, all right? So keep that in mind. Community college, it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier from what I know. I went to university for 4 years. I didn't find the first 2 years super challenging, but I also didn't have a whole lot of other responsibilities in those first 2 years. In my last 2 years, I had a lot more, but in my first 2 years, I just focused on school. I figured out how the ropes worked, and I figured out how to get it done, right? You're gonna have to do your math. Even if you take a non-STEM degree, even if you take some just liberal arts degree, most colleges will require at least 1 year of math. So you're gonna have to do basic math class, and then you're gonna end up doing some maybe more slightly advanced math class or some sort of statistical class. And guys, I'm gonna be straight up with you. I hated statistics. I ended up going to all the labs. I ended up, passing with a B, right? I think I barely passed with a B looking back. Or no, I think it was like a mid B. But anyway, I was not a whiz by any means. I had to invest a lot of time into it. It was my weak point, so I had to spend more time on it. I had to go to all the labs. It ended up being all right. But I also had a good teacher who gave a lot of extra credit opportunities. Something else I want to talk about while I'm on this subject, right? When you go to college, believe it or not, a lot of people just go in blind. They just go in blind, right? They choose a university that looks cool to them, and that's great. I'm not going to go too much into that because everybody's got a preference on what college they should go to. I really don't think there's really one college that's better than the other until you start getting into maybe a master's degree. Then it starts to matter a bit more. Everyone's going to have their argument on that, but as a general rule, when you go to college, guys, you can figure out the system, figure out your professors. There is an app called Rate My Professors. There's a website as well. There's probably other websites out there, but you can look at the professors at your college that are teaching your courses. You can go onto your university's website and look at these college courses and look who's going to be teaching them. And you can figure out if these teachers are going to be good or not. Now, I had friends who said they wanted to take the hardest professors because they wanted to learn, because they wanted to figure it out the hard way. They wanted to, make their education worthwhile. All right, guys, again, for the first 2 years, it really doesn't matter. You need to get your prerequisites out of the way. You do not want to end your college career, get an F, get a low GPA because you wanted to have the hardest statistical math teacher. And here's the catch, guys. When you put your ego and pride to the side, once you start to go through college, you realize that it's just a system. It's just, you play the system, right? There are people in college, there are professors in college who love failing students, who love to make their students work, who think that everybody in their class has all the free time in the world, who spend all their free time just studying. There's professors who think that there's people in their class that are only taking their class. They don't take into mind that you're taking 4 other classes. You're taking a full-time load of classes, that you're trying to have a social life, that you're working, right? That you might have a family, right? All these things. They don't care. There are professors who just have a miserable life, who got into a teaching position because it's a pretty safe job, has decent benefits, and they want to make your life a living hell. All right? So don't think because you purposely try to choose these lower rated professors that, oh, I'm doing the right thing and I'm going to do the hard work. Guys, pick the professors, I hate to say this, that are easy, right? At the end of the day, everybody's getting the same degree. You're going to school to get a degree. All right? If you want to challenge yourself when you get to your core classes, when you get to the classes you're going in for. So if you're going to be, I don't know, a communications major, right? Pick a hard class when you get to your comms teachers, right? But if it's English or math, guys, pick the professors that are rated highly. If you can. I understand that sometimes classes fill up and crazy stuff happens, but do your best to pick the teachers that have great reviews, that give extra credit opportunities, that aren't too crazy about, what's the word? I cannot think of the word right now. When you actually go to class, attendance, right? Don't pick the teachers that are gonna stick, 50% of your grade on attendance. I understand that can work both ways. Some people love it because they're like, oh, I'm gonna go every day to college. But let's be realistic, guys. What happens if you get sick and your teacher doesn't care? What happens if something happens in your life? You gotta leave town for a week. Your teacher, some of them are understanding, but some of them just do not care. So keep that in mind, guys. Pick the teachers that are going to make it a smooth process for you. Because I guarantee you, even the easiest teachers I had, I still had to study. Remember, all I was doing was going to college, right? I didn't really have any other responsibilities at this time, especially the first 2 years. I still had to study. I was studying hours a day. I was studying into the night, right? Especially before big tests, midterms, finals, subjects I wasn't naturally gifted at. I had to study. I had to put in work. So don't make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. Take advantage of the apps, of the reviews. Do what you got to do, all right? The other thing is, guys, when it comes to college, going back to what I said about picking something that's interesting to you, I know there's a lot of people who go into school, maybe they want to get a gen ed degree, general education. They want to get an art degree or whatever. That's cool. Do what you want to do, right? If your objective is to get in and out of college as soon as possible, do it. A lot of people just say you need a degree, and that's true. However, there are specialty degrees. Obviously, it's going to be your science, technology, engineering, mathematical/medical degrees. Those are going to be very specific, right? So if you're going to be an engineer, if you are going to school to be an engineer, understand that you're very likely going to be and work as an engineer afterwards. Now, you can always pivot, you can always do what you want with your life. But what I see that happens with a lot of people is they'll go to school and they'll pick something that's like, it's whatever to them, right? They'll get the degree and they'll get out and they'll try to do something with it and they'll end up doing some generic job, right? Working retail, all these things. Nothing wrong with that. We need people to work in retail. We need people to do certain things. What I'm saying is, realize what you get is going to affect your future. For instance, I got a degree in criminal justice. My thought at the time, I loved psychology, I loved criminology, I wanted to understand more about the criminal justice system. I was always very fascinated with how prison systems worked and the mind of people in prison, the mind of convicts, right? All of it. I found it absolutely fascinating. Law enforcement, how that kind of works, found it fascinating. My idea was to go into federal law enforcement afterwards, right? Didn't happen. My goals, my careers, my outlook changed. But understand, if you go for those type of degrees, right? If you go for a criminal justice degree, that's going to open the door for you when it comes to law enforcement, right? If you get a degree in English and you go try to be a cop, yes, that degree might help you, but they're probably going to pick the person who has the criminal justice degree over the guy with the English degree, right? There's going to be other factors involved, but keep that in mind, all right? One of the other things I would say with college, guys, is make sure, again, going back to the beginning here, make sure you have fun, right? I don't think you should have too much fun, though. That's just me, right? Because I kind of live this. don't have too much fun. There's a lot of people who get crazy off in the weeds, right? And this is your big bro Nate telling you as a big brother that cares, right? A lot of people, they go off the deep end of college. They end up partying a lot, drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs, right? Hanging around the wrong crowds, and they drop out. They end up in debt. They end up with a life that they don't like, that they can't do anything with, right? Be careful in college, all right? There's a lot of people. I had people that would just randomly come up to me. I'd just be at the computer lab. I'd walk by some dude. He's like, "Hey man, you look like you like to party. How about you come out to this party, this weekend?" But oh yeah, cool man, thanks, I appreciate it. Did I go to that? Heck no. I don't know these people. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they do. I really don't care, right? So associate with the people that you know, associate with the people that you like being around. Don't be one of those like, oh yeah, I'll just go to any and every party and every function. Nah, guys. Just find the people that you enjoy being around. All right. Last thing I'll say, guys, when it comes to college, understand at the end of the day that a college degree will give you a leg up. It is a ticket to do a lot of things, right? A lot of people crap on degrees and they're like, oh, they're useless. At the end of the day, guys, if you look at it, degrees are becoming more expensive. I understand a lot of people are anti-college. For a time I was as well. Now I'm just a realist about it. All right, a degree has opened doors for me in the past. I know it has, and it does something to you mentally. It says that you can do something that most people won't do. You don't realize a lot of people don't finish college. A lot of people don't finish. They start and they just give up. You do it for yourself. You do it for yourself. I did it because at the time I wanted to go into federal law enforcement. I wanted to be an officer in the military. It was a ticket, right? And even if you change your mind, even if you change what you want to do, that is going to still open the door for you. That's still going to give you an advantage over other people who don't have degrees. That's going to give you an advantage of a pay bump, of a pay raise, of a bonus. Going back to the criminal justice degree, for instance, a lot of police officers, you can start without a degree. You can get in without a degree. However, a degree is going to help you out immensely. Immensely. A lot of times they'll have a signing bonus. You'll have a bonus just for having a degree, right? You'll have preference on being hired. They've done studies that show that police officers, and I believe personally, this is just me, I think that every police officer should have at least a 2-year degree, but really a 4-year degree, because they have done multiple studies that have found that a 4-year degree in criminal justice, or just really anything, actually makes police officers much less likely to be, unnecessarily violent or, less prejudicial, right? Because they've been around people, they've put in the work, they've shown a level of maturity. It shows that they're a little bit more stable. They can get through something, that they can put their mind to something. They've been around people, they've had to mature, right? So I think it's huge. But understand that that's going to give you opportunities. It's going to open doors. It's going to give you bonus. It's going to give you preference. It's going to give you sometimes a higher rank, especially when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to the federal law enforcement, FBI, a lot of these places, government work, Homeland Security, they look for a degree, right? You can get in without one, but a lot of these places are starting to put this as a prerequisite, right? Unless they're really desperate, they're gonna go for the people with degrees, and having a degree is going to help you get the higher rank, start at a higher rank, get the bonus, get the higher pay, right? I don't regret it at all. I sort of regret not looking into scholarships and getting more funding for school, because even having just a little bit of school loans suck, right? And I really don't have a whole lot of school loans compared to a lot of people that I know. It's not uncommon for people to have, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans and student debt that they have to pay back over, their lifetime. It's not normal, guys. So get the money to pay for it. Understand you don't need college, but those are just some things that I would do, some tips and tricks that you can take, that you can think about, that you can put into action, guys. I think it's going to be extremely helpful. And if you guys found it helpful, I'd love to hear your comments below. If you have any questions, you want me to explain something more, if something wasn't clear, or you just want to add anything, let me know, guys. And Lord willing, I will see y'all in the next one.